Hey, Connor, just congratulations again on the goal. And as Bruce Murray talked about in the broadcast, when you've had that's not easy coming back from an injury. Um, and I know you've talked about this before, but can you just share again just what it's done for you and the emotions involved?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think nobody really knows what goes into the rehab and the recovery of an injury like an ACL unless you've done it before. So I think for me, scoring a goal this past weekend against Cincinnati, I think just kind of made it full circle for me. Just all the hard work, all the time, all the days in the off season that I was up here at our training facility for hours. Trying to put in work and get healthy has just made it feel worth it. So it was a big moment for me and my family, big victory for us. It was my wife was really proud and excited, obviously. So it was it was something that I'll always remember.
Undersized. Have you ever been called undersized in your life before? Has that become a nickname all week?
Listen, I will be called that for the rest of the year, or probably the rest of my time here at DC United. But no, I've never been called undersized. But I will give some context to what Troy was saying, because like in our meeting earlier that day, he did say that, and then afterwards he was like, "Look, if they put someone smaller on Connor, thanks for coming. We'll take that matchup all day." So he followed it up with a little compliment. Troy's never one to take jabs like that, so I know he didn't mean it in a negative way, but definitely for a first for me.
Yeah. Well, but it also, and maybe you can talk about this, the sophistication that goes into set pieces. It just seems like, and I said this to Troy, in the last, I don't know, 10 years, it's become, we've always known it's a scoring opportunity, but it's become more of an art form. Is that fair?
Absolutely, set pieces I think in our game now are huge, especially if if you're not having much success through the run of play. Getting a set piece opportunity and a set piece goal is huge. It can really open up the game for you, which I really feel like it did in that Cincinnati game for us. Scoring early is always important. I'll say that was not necessarily a set piece we had worked on, but that's something that we just kind of had noticed in game. But the goal that I had scored was something that we did work on, and it was something that we did talk about, and we did. Zach and Cody do an unbelievable job with our set piece group about kind of recognizing weaknesses that we can find in the opposition. And this is one they saw on the back post. And, I was, grateful to get the opportunity to get back there and put it in.
Chicago now obviously is the focus, but so many players. It's part of life in MLS or missing for various reasons. But this does seem like a team of opportunity where you have a collection of guys that you don't want players to miss, but they're ready if they're going to name is called.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're gonna see a lot of players this weekend that haven't necessarily got much of an opportunity, I think, so far. But I've talked about this in a few of these, but it's really that next man up mentality. I think everybody on our team is ready to take advantage of that opportunity when their name is called. And this game, especially being at home, huge opportunity. Away games are hard in the MLS. When you get an opportunity to play in front of your fans at home, it can be a little bit more comfortable for guys. We've trained there, we've obviously played there before, a lot more. So these guys they're gonna have to step up. We're obviously missing a lot of guys international duty, some injuries or whatever. But forget about that. It's about the 11 guys on the field, and we really got to step up and get a result. And I think we definitely have a big opportunity to do that this weekend.
Next, we'll go to Dennis Gomez.
Thank you, Connor, the man of the hour. Um, just want to ask you about what does it feel to get the team of the week recognition, and also, how did you ever dream a moment like that where, as an outside back, you would score the goal winner against a club side?
Yeah. So team of the week honors always, honor to be on that list. Troy does a really good job of making a point to bring up those guys at the beginning of the week if anyone gets named to that. But we do understand, like, it's a team thing. It's not, ever just the individuals, I wouldn't be on there without the guys around me. So that's really, a big thing to note. And then, that was my first MLS goal. I spent 4 years in the USL Championship and didn't score a goal in the USL Championship. So that was my first goal in the MLS. And I can't say I haven't pictured that moment, because I think every player's kind of pictured that moment of scoring a goal. But for me, I don't know. I was on a high. I've been on a high for the past several days. Just from that moment, I've gone back and watched the goals, several times. It's something I'll probably never get tired of watching. So yeah, I was super, super happy.
Congrats again. And just moving on to Chicago this weekend, what are after watching some film, some of the strengths that you've identified, and how are you planning on, stopping difficult players like Bamba and Kuipers?
Yeah. Chicago's a team. They're really dangerous, especially in the attack. They really like to play a lot in transition. They got some dangerous guys up top that you've talked about, in Bamba and Kuipers. And we discussed that today in our meeting, in our film, about ways we can really limit them, limit their playmakers. I think that's something that we really tried to identify with Cincinnati as well, is trying to get Evander and Denke off the ball as much as we possibly could. So I think we're going to try to take the same approach this weekend. Really get their playmakers off the ball and make some other guys beat us. But they really like to play in transition. We may seem like we have the ball and we're moving it around in their half, and one simple mistake, one bad pass, and they're off and running, and they've got the players to do it. So we've really got to be critical with our passes and making sure we're making right decisions in the right areas, because they're a team that scores a lot of goals, and in saying that, I think we've had a lot of really good defensive performances the past few weeks. So I think our group's going to definitely be up for it.
And then the last one, what is your message to those fans who might be on the fence of coming to support this weekend, and what's your message to them?
Look, weather's going to be unbelievable. We're a team that's never going to stop fighting. Regardless of what's going on in the game, we always have the right attitude. We always have the right mindset. We truly do feel and hear the fans when they're in the stadium with us. I was on the bench for the home game against Red Bull, and I think that's the largest crowd that I've seen at Audi in a long time for one of our games. And even just sitting on the bench, I could hear it, I could feel the energy. It truly makes a big difference. So please come out.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you.
Just one in person.
Yeah, I just had a question. I don't want to beat a dead horse about your goal, because I expect you to score a few more this year. But just going back and knowing you're a family man, knowing all your friends and former teammates, people like Adam Diamond who helped you along the way. I'm just wondering what if you had any phone calls or text messages afterwards. What's your phone look like?
Yeah. My phone, when I got back to the locker room, I definitely expected my phone to have a few messages, maybe some tags on Instagram and Twitter, but I had about 50 messages on my phone, between Instagram and text messages and things like that. I had a few, of course, I had 3 missed calls from my mom, and she doesn't understand. I hadn't got back to the locker room yet to get on my phone, but I was able to FaceTime my brother. Obviously my twin brother is my best friend, super close with him, but I was able to FaceTime him and then my younger brother Cole, and then obviously my wife, while I was in the locker room, and kind of just share that moment with them and kind of the whole moment with the team that we were having, because that was a huge win for us. Obviously, they were super excited. My wife, her phone was kind of blowing up a little bit from people that love me and love her and just love and supported my journey this past year that we've been through together. Because that's one thing I want to emphasize is, even though I was injured and I was doing recovery and everything like that, it's really my wife who's the backbone of our family and the one who's supporting me through everything, and still having to take care of all 3 of our kids. And then, I'm for a extended period of time, I wasn't really able to walk or do much. I was on crutches, so she was really taking care of me as well. So, she's, to have that moment with her, she understands how hard that's been for both of us. So it was amazing to be able to enjoy that with her.
And then obviously, you make your first appearance back, right? You make a couple of appearances,
Yeah,
and you score a goal.
yeah.
Is that goal, when you scored it, does that feel even better as kind of validation for you that everything that you've gone through now, you're not only back, but you're making an impact on the field?
Yeah, 100%. It's one thing to to get into matches and appear or start games. But when you really are contributing on the score sheet, it's another huge deal. Really feeling like you're helping contribute to the team in that way. Like I had kind of mentioned earlier, it's just like a full circle thing for me, and puts all the hard work and stuff that I've been through the past year just all on the table and be, hey, look, this is what it was for. Like, you asked for this, you worked for this, so go do it.